Imagine waking up in the heart of the Roman Empire, 2,000 years in the past. At first glance, the marble statues, grand temples, and bustling streets seem exciting. You're surrounded by togas, chariots, and echoes of Latin in the air. But don't get too comfortable, because by the time the sun sets, you might be starving, beaten, diseased, or even dead. In fact, there's a good chance you wouldn't survive even 24 hours in ancient Rome. Let's see why. The air you breathe could kill you. Your first mistake? Taking a deep breath. The air in ancient Rome was thick with filth. No sewers in the modern sense. Public latrines emptied into open drains. Human waste, animal carcasses, and rotting food filled the streets. And the smell? Overpowering. But worse than the stench were the diseases it carried. Typhoid, cholera, tuberculosis, all thriving in the crowded slums and public baths. Romans bathed communally in water rarely cleaned, with hundreds of others. That warm water? A playground for bacteria. The urban poor, packed into multi-story tenement blocks called insulae, lived in conditions so foul that a minor infection could mean a quick and gruesome death. If you had a cut, even a small one, you better hope you don't get infected, because antibiotics won't exist for another 1,800 years. You're starving, and the food might kill you. Next, you try to find something to eat. You step into a Roman taberna, basically a street food stand, and scan the options. Bread, olives, maybe some overcooked meat. Sounds decent? Not so fast. Much of Rome's grain was imported from Egypt and stored in vermin-infested granaries. The bread was often contaminated with sand or even ground-up bones, used to increase weight. Lead-based pots and containers were common, and the wine? It was often mixed with seawater, herbs, or, you guessed it, lead syrup for sweetness. Even the rich couldn't escape. Roman elites gorged on bizarre delicacies like stuffed dormice, fermented fish sauce called garum, and flamingo tongues. But the real danger wasn't what they ate, it was how. Banquets went on for hours. Guests reclined and vomited between courses to keep eating, often using communal sponges instead of toilet paper afterward. Dysentery and parasites, almost guaranteed. So, still hungry? Clothing and climate. Extremes on both ends. Now let's talk comfort, or lack of it. You're probably wearing a tunic made of scratchy wool, maybe a toga if you're trying to fit in. The fabric isn't soft like the linen you've heard about. It's rough and uncomfortable, making every movement a reminder of your social status. Forget about the luxury of modern underwear, zippers, or even shoes that fit well. Roman footwear was little more than leather soles strapped to your feet, offering no protection from the elements or the hazards of the streets. You're constantly aware of sharp stones digging into your soles, the stench of refuse and human waste clinging to your skin, and the cold biting into your feet as you walk. In summer, the Mediterranean sun is relentless. The streets are suffocatingly hot, and the sun beats down on you without mercy. Shade is a rare commodity, and the only reprieve comes from the occasional breeze or the fleeting shade of a building. Water isn't free either. Access to fresh water is a privilege reserved for the wealthier classes, and even then, you may have to wait in long lines at the public fountains to fill your jug. Dehydration is a real threat, especially when the heat waves are prolonged, and your body is constantly drenched in sweat. In winter, it's a different kind of torment. The stone buildings that dominate the city, beautiful but unforgiving, turn into icy fortresses. The cold seeps through the walls and floors, and there's little you can do to escape it. Central heating, or hippocaust, was available, but only to the wealthy elite, and even then, it was a crude system that didn't always provide warmth where it was needed most. If you're poor, the best you can hope for is a thin blanket, perhaps a small fire in the corner, but you're never truly warm. And don't forget, the roads you walk on are uneven, treacherous, and designed for horse-drawn carts, not for pedestrians. The cobblestones are loose, cracked, and slippery, and raw sewage trickles through the center of the streets. The constant risk of slipping or stepping in something far worse adds another layer of misery to your daily walk. The laws are brutal, and you have no rights. Say you accidentally bump into a Roman citizen while wandering the forum. Bad news. If you're a foreigner, or worse, a slave, you have zero rights. You could be beaten, enslaved, or dragged before a magistrate for a crime you didn't even understand. And Roman punishments? Unforgiving. Thieves could have their hands cut off. Adulterers might be exiled or executed. Slaves who offended their masters could be crucified, literally nailed to a wooden cross and left to die over days. If you're accused of something serious, like treason, you might face damnatio ad bestias, being thrown to wild animals in front of a cheering crowd. Lions, leopards, bears, starved for the spectacle. Justice in Rome wasn't about fairness. It was about power, control, and public fear. The baths, the brothels, the disease. You decide to visit a bathhouse. After all, Romans loved hygiene, right? Well, kind of. Yes, Roman baths were magnificent. Vast halls of marble and steaming pools. But they were also petri dishes. Hundreds crammed together, sharing water that wasn't drained for days. Soap didn't exist. Instead, people scraped themselves with metal tools called strigils, often reused without cleaning. Many bathhouses doubled as brothels or informal meeting places for every kind of vice. Sexually transmitted diseases were rampant. Syphilis may not have existed yet, but chlamydia and gonorrhea did. And treatments? Try wine mixed with herbs, or mercury. No wonder Roman doctors, despite their skill in surgery, often did more harm than good. Their tools were sharp, but their knowledge of infection practically non-existent. Slavery is everywhere, and you might be one. You're not just at risk of dying, you're at risk of being owned. In Rome, nearly 1/3 of the population were slaves. They weren't just laborers, they were cooks, tutors, gladiators, concubines. And they could be anyone. Greek philosophers, kidnapped Gauls, or even debtors from the Roman provinces. If you look out of place, speak the wrong Latin, or simply can't explain where you're from, you might be captured and sold. And Roman slavery wasn't just cruel, it was industrial. Slaves were whipped, branded, mutilated, even killed on a whim. There were no laws to protect them, only the mood of their masters. Gladiator games. And you're the main event. If you're especially unlucky, you'll end up in the Colosseum. Contrary to Hollywood, not all gladiators were slaves, but most were. Forced to fight animals, criminals, or each other for the entertainment of bloodthirsty mobs. The average lifespan of a gladiator? A few years at best. And the crowd? They loved the gore. A thumb turned down didn't always mean death, but when the emperor was watching, it often did. Even if you survived the fight, infection from wounds could kill you days later. Or your reward. A wooden sword and temporary freedom. Until the next time you were summoned. Religion, superstition, and fear of the gods. You try to find solace in religion. But this is Rome, and religion isn't peaceful. It's political, public, and terrifying. Omens rule everything. The gods' favor or their wrath shapes the course of your life. At any moment, a single event can shift your future, and it's all dictated by divine signs. Lightning striking during a public speech? It's not just weather, it's a warning from Jupiter. The Senate might suspend the session, delay vital decisions, or even abandon their agendas entirely. You can't escape the all-powerful presence of the gods in every moment, and it doesn't stop with natural occurrences. The smallest animal behavior becomes a divine message. If a chicken refuses to eat before a military campaign, a delay is inevitable. This superstition extends into daily life, too. If you sneeze at the wrong moment, perhaps during an important wedding ceremony, it's a bad omen, and your marriage could be doomed before it even begins. The gods are everywhere, and their judgment is harsh. Religious festivals are a regular feature of Roman life, each one designed to appease the gods, but they're far from serene celebrations. These festivals often involve rituals that are disturbing to witness, let alone participate in. Animal sacrifices, especially of bulls, sheep, and even dogs, are performed with brutal efficiency. The air is filled with the cries of the slaughtered animals, their blood spilling onto the temple altars. The noise, the screams, the violence, it's overwhelming, yet it's expected of every citizen to take part, or at least witness, to show devotion. And if you don't conform, if you dare to practice a foreign religion or challenge the Roman pantheon, you are risking everything. You could be accused of atheism, treason, or worse. Christians, Jews, and Druids, along with others who worship outside the state-sanctioned faith, were often persecuted. Torture, execution, and burning alive were real threats, reserved for those who defied the accepted gods of Rome. In a city where every god, every sign, and every ritual holds sway over your fate, there is no real refuge. The fear of divine punishment is as close as your next breath, and the tension between religious obligation and personal safety is ever present. You're exhausted and still not safe. Night falls. You've survived so far, but don't relax just yet. The Roman streets are dangerous after dark. There's no police force as we know it, no streetlights to guide your way. As darkness settles over the city, the sense of vulnerability intensifies. The city is a maze of narrow alleys, each one a potential death trap. Without the bustle of daylight to mask it, every footstep echoes like a warning. Gangs of thieves and predators lurk in the shadows, their eyes glinting with malice. Whether they're after your coin purse or your life, they don't care. Armed with daggers or crude weapons, they're ready to strike without warning. If you find yourself in the wrong place at the wrong time, your fate is sealed, robbed, assaulted, or worse. But even if you avoid the criminals, the city itself is a deadly place. Fires are a constant menace. The wooden homes and densely packed tenements built close to one another create an inferno waiting to happen. A single ember from a cooking fire or a spark from a poorly managed flame could ignite a massive blaze that sweeps through entire neighborhoods. As the fire spreads, panic consumes the streets. The air thickens with smoke, and the cries of trapped families pierce the night. Escape is your only option. But in the chaos, you can easily be caught in the flames or crushed by panicking crowds. And then, there's the ever-present risk of illness. If you're injured or sick, you're in serious trouble. There are no hospitals. You might find yourself at the mercy of a slave doctor or a Greek physician, trained in bizarre and painful methods. Without anesthesia, every treatment feels like torture. Trepanning, the use of leeches, or cauterizing wounds with heated iron are just some of the options available to you. None offer any comfort, only fear of more harm. Desperation takes hold as you search for somewhere to sleep. With no money or resources, your shelter is a grim reality. A thin, damp straw mat on the cold stone floor of a crowded room surrounded by strangers, rats, and the biting insects that swarm over the walls. The stench of urine, sweat, and rot fills the air, and every cough or wheeze reminds you of how fragile life is here. You can't escape the noise, the sickening sounds of others fighting for air or shaking with fevers. And as the night drags on, as exhaustion weighs heavily on you, one thought keeps you awake, gnawing at your mind. You're not going to survive this. Not in this place. Not in this life. So, still want to time travel? The truth is, ancient Rome was fascinating, powerful, and awe-inspiring. But for most people, it was a brutal, filthy, and terrifying place to live. We romanticize the temples, the togas, and the triumphs, but we forget the sewage, the slavery, and the screams from the arena. If you landed in Rome with no connections, no money, and no immunity to ancient diseases, odds are you wouldn't last 24 hours. So the next time someone says they wish they could live in ancient times, show them this video. And if you enjoyed this glimpse into the harsh truth of Roman life, subscribe for more brutal history that school never taught you. Because sometimes, the past is better left in the past.